crime. This morning I'm pleased to welcome the Honourable Minister for Justice, Honourable Michael Keenan, and the Police Minister, who need no introduction, Tony Piccolo. I also wish to introduce Matt Varley. Matt's the Senior AFP Officer in South Australia. The order of proceedings are this morning that both ministers will say a few words, and then there'll be questions after that, which you obviously can ask what you wish. Early in 2014, SOPA was approached by the AFP, and we were asked about our willingness to establish a joint anti-child exploitation team in South Australia. And obviously we saw that as a very welcome opportunity, and the official launch of that arrangement is this morning, and I invite the Honourable Minister to do that. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you, Tom, and it's good to be here with my colleague Tony Piccolo, Minister for Police in South Australia, also Commander Matt Varley from the Australian Federal Police. We're all too aware, unfortunately, about the increasing volume of those who are using the internet and new technologies to prey on the most vulnerable people in our society, and that is children. Unfortunately and disturbingly, that is a trend that is going to continue to increase. And we need to do all we can to combat exploitation of children within the online environment. And to do that, we need a new coordinated multi-agency response. And today we've just formally recognised, Tony and I have just formally recognised the signing of and the establishment of a new model here in South Australia, a model that we're rolling out all around the country of joint anti-child exploitation teams, which we know as jackets. And this is a new operating model for the Australian Federal Police and for the police here in South Australia. As Tom was just saying, the jacket model has been operational in South Australia since January, and that's seen AFP officers co-located with their South Australian counterparts alongside the South Australian Police Special Crimes Investigation Branch. This is the first time that we've seen federal police officers co-located with their South Australian colleagues. Investigation into matters of online child exploitation are going to continue to be investigated in this way all around the country. The information is received from the Australian Federal Police's Assessment Centre in Canberra. It's then triaged and sent through to the relevant jacket, which are now operational in most jurisdictions around the country. In the past 3 months with the South Australian jacket, we've received over 30 online child exploitation referrals from the AFP Assessment Centre, and those referrals are currently being investigated. I want to make it very clear that we will continue to go after perpetrators of online child abuse all around the country, and particularly here in South Australia. This new model is going to make sure that we prosecute Australians who would seek to exploit children, whether they're exploiting children here in the online environment or whether they're doing it overseas. We will make sure that we are going after them with all the powers we have at our disposal, and this new model will help us do exactly that. I'd like to congratulate the Australian Federal Police and South Australian Police for this milestone. This is a milestone that's going to enhance the safety of our children. It's also going to enhance the safety of children who are vulnerable to abuse in the international environment as well. We will continue to do everything we can to stop this horrendous crime, and the signing today is a step forward in making sure that we've got the combined resources of policing agencies in South Australia and federally working together to stop online child sexual abuse. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Now I invite Minister Piccolo to say a few words. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Tom. My federal colleague, the Honourable Minister, has actually covered most of the area, so all I'd like to add is that we welcome this initiative. We thank the Commonwealth on this initiative, and we believe this initiative, through the establishment of these joint child exploitation teams, will enhance our capabilities to make sure that our response is quicker and more efficient when dealing with child sex abuse cases. Importantly, in this new online environment, where people do things to children, know no boundaries, whether they state or national or international boundaries. And this joint approach makes sure that we put our resources in quickly to respond and identify those perpetrators very quickly, and protect our children. So it's a great initiative, and that, from a SAPOL's point of view, we welcome the ability to work with our federal colleagues and also the federal government, and that I believe this approach will deliver better outcomes and keep our children safe. Thank you.
I know that we've heard some of it before, but can you just explain that joint approach, exactly how you'll be working together and how that will actually fit?
I'll do it in the general terms, and I'll leave the operational things to the people who deal with it every day. But what it means is you get information in, you share that information, you interrogate information, and importantly, you put that information into context. The important thing about having a joint team is that you have a whole piece of information. By bringing them together and interrogate them as a team, you actually get a better context and the response is more appropriate. You can do that apart. That takes longer, and there can be issues around miscommunication. By bringing people together, you're able to have that information assessed very quickly and respond very quickly.
Thank you, sir. Now invite any further questions. Thank you.
30 referrals in the past 3 months from the assessment centre in Canberra. Is that more than usual?
No, I wouldn't think it is more than. It was more than usual in terms of this initiative has just commenced, but out of those 30, I think there's been some 8 arrests and 4 reports. I think, as I came in this morning, works out about 1 a week, and that would certainly not be a number, regrettably less than what would be normal. But the systems and structures that are now in place enables us to some of the offending is against Commonwealth legislation, and some is against state legislation. Well, now the teams go out as one, and whichever's the appropriate strategy in terms of where the offending is or what the offending is, they're able to adopt particular legislation, and that legislation is slightly different in terms of how you get warrants and the charging of the offences. So, to answer your question, I don't think it would be a greater number than normal, but certainly we're able to handle that workload more efficiently now than we did in the past.
Can you give some examples of how this has been difficult to pursue in the past before this task force was set up? Obviously, there would have been.
Well, before, in some of the offending, we would have to actually go to the AFP and say to enlist their services, and while they're most willing to come along and to do their part. Now that determination and the assessments, as Minister Piccolo said, can be done straight away in-house. They can decide what do we know about this. They can feed the information back to the assessment centre in Canberra if necessary, who can work up that information and identify if that particular offender is known, or that approach, the internet type approach, is occurring elsewhere, and they're able to identify that offender as committing other offences elsewhere, or same information being disseminated by one particular person. So it's really bringing it all together.
So the AFP approached SA Police last January, is that right? And what was the reason for that? Was it a growing problem that you needed to get on top of?
That's right. The AFP's responsibility here is to work with our state and territory colleagues. This is smart policing. This is an opportunity for us to connect the specialist expertise and roles of the AFP through to the long-standing expertise and experience that state police, and particular SAPOL, have in these sorts of fields. To give you an indication, the AFP receives about 5,000 pieces of intelligence from international partners, mostly through what's called the National Centre for Missing and Exploited Children in the United States. Each year, that centre receives referrals and pieces of intelligence from online service providers, e-commerce platforms from around the world, and those pieces of intelligence are shared out to law enforcement agencies around the globe. Our job is to identify the pieces of intelligence that are actionable, that can be progressed into investigations, and then work with our colleagues here in South Australia to make those jobs happen quicker and faster. The value that the AFP brings to these types of investigations is our international reach and some of the specialist technical capabilities that we can also offer. Our 3 federal agents here embedded with SAPOL bring particular skills in terms of international investigations, but we also one of the officers is also a specialised digital forensics analysis expert who now has the ability here in-house with SAPOL to analyse storage mediums and computers that are found in search warrants. So this is about bringing together the skills and expertise of both agencies and essentially protecting kids. And the smarter and more faster ways we can do that, the better, I say.
Are we likely to see more arrests on this?
I'd certainly hope so, and the track record of about 9 arrests and 4 reports or summonses over the past 3 months should give you an indication that we're interested and very committed to stepping up the prosecution of offenders who would download or share this type of material in South Australia. And there's certainly a commitment from every one of the investigators in the team to work as hard and as fast as they can to protect children in this state.
Do you have a specific target?
Sorry?
Do you have any targets, benchmark?
The target is absolutely anyone in this state, and indeed the country, who would seek to download, share, possess or even upload child exploitation material. We do not discriminate against any person or individual who might be involved in that sort of activity.
Do you
Do you
believe
have
this?
any arrests you paper or anything like that? Has there been any loose targets presented to you in this task force?
No, not at all. Not at all. This is about identifying the intelligence, pursuing those investigations through to conclusion, and as you've seen, 21 search warrants have been executed in South Australia in the past 3 months. 9 men have been arrested of varying ages, and further 4 more have been summoned to appear in front of court. As I said, our message is pretty clear here. If you download, if you manufacture, if you distribute child exploitation material in this state, this team is here to take care of that.
This 50% increase in the number of referrals you've had from the US National Centre there, what's that down to, do you think?
I think it's about the growing, to be frank, the problem of child exploitation material around the world is growing. But the mechanisms for detecting it and reporting it and actioning the intelligence are also becoming more sophisticated. So the National Centre for Missing and Exploited Children in the United States is a very sophisticated operation. They receive reports of intelligence from online providers, predominantly in the United States, but also based around the world. And that we are getting better and we are getting faster at detecting that and actioning it. And you've seen the results of those around the country.
So that increase in referrals is largely due to the fact that there's more Australians out there accessing child pornography at the moment?
I can't say whether there are more Australians out there accessing child pornography. What I can tell you is that we're getting faster and better at detecting it, and the people who do access it and do download it should be alert to the fact that they can't hide.
That 50% increase, is there figures that can back that up? Like what were the numbers of the increase?
The 50% increase in terms of the number of reports.
Yeah. So what did it go from to?
We can get you those figures, but to give you an indication, last year there was about 5,000 reports, and already this year, in the first 3 months of the year, the AFP has received about 1,500 reports, I think it is, from the US and our counterparts overseas. And that's the benefit, as I said, that's the benefit the AFP can bring to this type of work. Our international reach and the international scope that we bring is a specialist role that we can offer to our colleagues here in South Australia. And we'll deal with the information as it comes in.
Are similar task force like this set up in other parts of Australia?
They are. We're setting up task forces from the AFP in every state and territory. We already have operational task forces here in South Australia, in Victoria, the Northern Territory and WA, and arrangements are being made to implement a similar mechanism in New South Wales and Queensland. And I understand, Minister, you're headed off to Sydney tomorrow for this very same issue.
That's right.
Is this the first one, or is this the first one created?
No, we've been rolling out this model all around the country, but obviously this model has been operational in South Australia since the beginning of the year. We know that it's working well for the past 3.5 months in which it has been operational, and we know that where we've rolled it out in other parts of the country, it's also working very well, and we'll continue to do that. Because we know when we're sending federal police to work side by side with their state and territory colleagues on an issue that is important as this, that gives us the coordinated and multi-agency approach that we know is going to catch perpetrators of online child sexual abuse.
What lengths are people going to cover their tracks when they're...
Look, it's probably more an operational...
I'm not the expert on that subject, but as we know, and as Matt alluded to, eventually they'll be caught. I'm most certain, and I haven't got the expertise to be able to talk on how they do hide their tracks, but certainly, as Matt said, the technology that we're using is increasing as fast as what their use of technology is, and hopefully we get in front of theirs and those people are identified.
I'm not sure if you have more of an idea, but is a lot of this being conducted on the dark net, or is it...
Yes and no. You'd be surprised to learn that a lot of the reports we receive are through mainstream online platforms, Facebook, Instagram. Those are the platforms where people can commence to start to share details of sharing this type of child exploitation material. And it's important to note, this is not just about sharing images. This is about identifying the networks of people who might share images, who might create or distribute this type of material. And it's about the commerce providers. It's about the e-commerce behind the distribution of that material, because a lot of this is done on fee-for-service or a payment model. So we know that people here in Australia are paying for this material to be downloaded from offshore, and there are exploited children on the end of those cameras in places like Southeast Asia who we're also seeking to protect. And the AFP has a very good capability in Canberra called the Victim Identification Team. We can actually identify and track images of children and match those against other known images elsewhere to put pieces of the puzzle together to try and save kids. And that's the primary responsibility here.
Is that over nature worrying, the fact that people are just sharing info over Facebook?
I wouldn't go so far as to say that they're necessarily sharing explicit images on Facebook, although we have seen examples of that. But what I'd say is mainstream platforms provide an opportunity for people to communicate, provide an opportunity for people to network, and that's where we can identify people who come together and would want to share this stuff. And that's why I say it's not just about the dark web, it's not just about someone hiding in a dark corner sharing this stuff through encryption. These people will take any opportunity and any means of communication available to them to do this. But we absolutely have seen cases of sophisticated encryption. We absolutely see cases of online storage, not on hard drives. And that's where some of our specialist forensics and technical capabilities, along with the skills of the South Australian Police detectives, are so effective together into getting the job done.
Are any of those South Australian people that have been arrested this year using platforms like Facebook and Instagram?
Yes, absolutely, and some of the reports we've received have been indicating those types of platforms, and I don't want to go into the specifics of each one, but those types of platforms are used as identifiers and markers for us to commence our investigations. But ultimately, we're after identifying the person at the end of the computer, and they get pretty much a rude shock when the police come through their door. And I think that's the important message to send. This is not online, virtual, or some sort of abstract cyber behaviour. These are real people in South Australia accessing this material and indeed uploading it. And there are kids at risk here in South Australia, and that's our job to look for and to identify and bring them to safety.
So you say that a lot of the victims are in Southeast Asia, but have you seen any examples of these people in South Australia that you've arrested this year actually exploiting children?
The work of this team has included since January the arrest of a chap for abusing a child in South Australia, and that child was rescued from that danger. So it is not only offshore, it is also here. And just reinforcing what was said, I mean, this is about the safety of children. This is not about someone sitting in a room looking at images. But for every one of those images, there's being a child violated, or exposed to danger. So I don't think you can speak highly enough of the work of the team and their specialisation and what their purpose is. Is to save these children.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Guys, can you just stay there for 1 second?